All right. If you get us started. So welcome and bienvenue to NeurotechX Hack Night Online. So just a quick introduction for those who are new. NeurotechX is an international community that facilitates the advancement of neurotechnology. Our pillars are community, education, and innovation. And you can find chapters pretty much worldwide, as well as meetups and if you don't have one in your local community, get in touch. Also check the student clubs in your university, join us online on Slack, and check out our website for references and tutorials. Okay, so hi everyone, and yeah, don't have anything big or any presentations this week, but obviously, or for those that aren't aware, there's a very big conference going on for researchers in human brain mapping that I thought we could maybe dig into and check some interesting research that's being presented in EEG, NIRS, things like that. Obviously, catch up on the usual news. Put John in the hot seat for as long as he's willing to sit there, and yeah, and this would be the time where if there's anybody on who's it's their first time or newcomer, please introduce yourself and tell us what brings you here. Oh, hi.
Hi, I'm Jackie.
Yeah.
I recently graduated from UC Berkeley in creative science. And I first became serious with neurotech 2 years ago when my aunt suffered a stroke and became paraplegic and aphasic. And then I attended the BCI meeting in Escaloma.
Okay.
And it was really great where I can learn and meet with researchers during that time.
Sure.
When I was still in college. And then, I also attended the BCI Hackathon by GTech.
Cool. Okay.
Actually, there are also, there will be a summer school next week, and there will be another hackathon. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. And are you involved with the Neurotech course at Berkeley?
On the Neurotech club?
Yeah.
I've been into the meeting, but I wasn't active.
Sure. No, that's great, and thank you for introducing yourself. No pressure, but lovely to have you here. If you've got anything that you would like to talk about, we are interested in topics, or I'm interested in topics, and yeah.
There's also another Neuroscience conference happening this week at Columbia University. I find that
yes. Yeah. So the past 2 days, the Nano Neuro. Yeah. So did you catch some of that?
Yeah, I caught some of that.
Okay.
A lot of cool technology and integration.
Yeah. So for those who aren't familiar, I did post that in Slack, in the NTX Slack. Nano Neuro was going on. It was I think it was actually put together by people in Basque Country. What's the it's like Donatazio Physics Center. Yeah, forgive me if I'm misremembering that. But there were some great people, including Jose Carmena from Berkeley. Well, Berkeley slash I forget the name of his startup, because I think he's technically on leave right now. But he had some great. They really ranged. I mean, when they say nano, there was some real. There was some real like chemical physics, nanomaterials people speaking, but Jose was there speaking about BCI, and anyway, that's all available on YouTube. Which I saw it streamed, but I assume that they're saving that as well. And I thought there was some really great talks. There was also some I did actually study quantum, but the nanomaterial stuff was pretty hardcore. So really good stuff that particular conference, I thought. And I mean, some of the coolest stuff, I mean, in terms of the combined like optical electrodes that at least I saw the first day was really pretty impressive. And yeah, it's kind of the stuff that you see at the Brain Initiative meeting, for those who caught some of that. But yeah,
the Brain Initiative thing, that was that on the agenda to talk about like last week, and then we didn't, or something like that?
Many things have been on our agenda, and then
Right.
we've blown past them.
Because I did want to ask, because it sounded like you'd taken a look. And
I mean, I definitely tracked as much as I could. It was still, it was midday, or it was, yeah. I didn't catch the whole thing.
Is there a general gist? I mean, I think I read somewhere they're moving like into human or out of like animal oriented technology. Is that,
well,
did you get that vibe?
Well, I mean, sort of in the same way that like I see elsewhere in terms of, well, how do we make this practical? Like, how does this come into clinical use? And
Right.
I always think, well, let's see what people are presenting next year. I mean, just in terms of like, these are, yeah. I mean,
yeah. In a way, like that would be a shame if that's what, because the Brain Initiative was really kind of robustly well-funded basic science.
Yeah.
And like basic science based on like focused on technology, in a kind of somewhat foresightful way. So it'd be a shame if they just kicked that defining theme.
This is the kind of stuff that's like all well above my pay grade, in the sense that like NSF's being completely revamped, like the level at which the funding kind of, the funding goals are being set, and the kind of, if you don't mind me saying, the kind of dysfunction that's currently at the federal level, or at least the lack of maintaining kind of a momentum on things. Like certainly the Brain Initiative originally had some pretty clear technological goals that have not yet been met. it would be, you know, it was kind of like, it would be nice to meet these goals so that we could affect some real changes in both basic research and, you know, and eventually clinical practice. But yeah, so I don't know if that's driven by like a kind of short-sighted, like, hey, how do we redirect money towards, you know, other goals, or if it's a real change in direction.
Mom, can you put a shelf for me?
Talk to Mama. So that would be interesting to see. But I was definitely just trying to catch the technical talks that were available there, you know. And I'm trying to think now let's see if I've got any notes on that. I have not been keeping good notes of our.
Can you put it on for me? Mama said yes.
Okay, just one sec.
For anybody else who I guess is familiar with the Brain Initiative, I guess, can you tell me more about like the kinds of projects that they were working on? Or so I guess from Googling it quickly, I guess it's a federal program. So see like NSF, the FDA. I guess this is through NIH. These are all, you know, federal agencies that are partnering on this. So I guess what were they up to?
It was a big thing that, you know, I can't remember when they started it. Somehow Obama's name got attached to it in that weird way, and I'm sure it was conceived entirely outside of his, you know, ideation. But it was the Obama Brain Initiative for a long time anyway. But what did they do? That is a good question that I would actually. I'm actually going to have a little kind of browse through to remind myself, but they did put a lot of money into optogenetics, which was already, I think, kind of well on the way at the time that the initiative started. But they did. There's this technology called temporal interference stimulation, which was developed by Ed Boyden's group. Ed Boyden is a guy at MIT who's kind of invents a lot of cool shit, basically, through like a very innovative scientist, like engineer, neuroscientist, or engineer biologist. And yeah, so those are the two that I remember off the top of my head. I think they also, I mean, the basic point was, and sometimes it's kind of described in contrast to the European Human Brain Project, right? So the Human Brain Project, one version of describing what that was about. In the end, it was about lots of things, but the simplest description is it was €1 million that was funding research over 10 years on developing very high performance brain simulations, right?
Talking about Human Brain Project?
Yeah, just as a contrast, right? And so that's like simulations, computational stuff. They did a lot of the money actually went a lot into hardware as well, and compute infrastructure, as well as kind of pure computational neuroscience. But in a sense, like that was, you know, on the like theory simulation side of things, and the big money investment on the other side of the pond at that time was the Brain Initiative, and they would focused on technology for experiments. So it was like building better technology, inventing new technology primarily, but also improving existing technologies for doing experimental empirical neuroscience.
with kind of the goal of like, we want to be able to record activity from every cell,
Right. Yeah.
a large animal and or human.
And that was what you were referring to when you said they didn't realize that goal.
Right. Well,
Right.
that's like, yeah, we're not. I mean, there's some really cool things have come out of that, even though it was, it was a tenth of the money, right? I mean, yeah. So
I said just now, I said optogenetics, or some money kind of funded some optogenetic stuff, and temporal interference stimulation. Can you think of some other flagship things that have come out of that?
I kind of think it's some of the stuff out of Genelia Farm, and the whole animal calcium imaging,
Right.
that kind of stuff.
Some of that Allen Institute,
Allen Institute,
genetic.
some of these people have positions at both.
Yeah.
I mean, and the joke of the Allen Institute is, like, imagine we were at a place with sufficient funding, like we could do cool stuff. Yeah. I mean, when you think about their cellular rigs and the kind of stuff that they did with together with the applied physics lab at Johns Hopkins and Jülich in terms of big brain. I mean, and what's this? Is it Josh Vogelstein? Anyway, like lots of cool stuff that is like multi-scale, going cellular to but massive coverage, and yeah, those have been, yeah, but I'd still say that they haven't met those kind of original objectives, and certainly not in human, in ways that influence clinical care, although again, probably not their goal, or not the Obama initiative goal. What did you think of human brain mapping? So I'd say that Data Labs was quite playing quite a role.
You mean in the open science room stuff?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd love to hear. I assume you've caught lots of posters and presentations.
I tried to, yeah. I've been a bit light on the posters, but I caught all the keynotes. I mean, the first one really took me, actually. It was Joshua Bengio.
Okay.
And it's like, well, he was talking about stuff that it seems he's doing now, or has been doing recently, and he's basically, we're talking about deep learning models of consciousness and action planning.
Okay.
And he was doing like global workspace architectures, and this kind of stuff. Like, I know this stuff really well because this got me into science almost. I was really obsessed with that line of work for a long time. But it's interesting. I mean,
now would you say that global workspace is kind of like Dahan's thing?
Yeah. Right. So
okay.
he was citing Dahan.
Okay.
He was citing like Dahan, and even the early Dahan stuff, where it was about cognitive control, not consciousness.
Yeah.
But he was talking about both of those. So for other people, like the idea of a global workspace architecture is kind of a concept really that has materialized in various forms and has kind of received some support from neuroscience in various areas, but in a sense as well, like not entirely convincing support for the main idea. But the main idea is along the lines of like it's like a theory of the functional neural architecture of the type of brain processes that are conscious and that are involved in high level cognition. And this thing that this schematic is called a global workspace. And the idea is that you have like a network that has a kind of core periphery structure where you have modules, or you have kind of parts of the network that are on the periphery, kind of like the typical diagrams there, but look a little bit like a pentagon of little graphs, little networks that are connected to each other. But then there's this middle bit, and the middle bit is the kind of the convergence points. You can think of the peripheral networks as kind of specialized systems, like primary sensory systems and motor systems, and even like cognitive modules, like high level reasoning or something. But the workspace part, the idea is that like in order for information to be processed in a kind of sophisticated way, sophisticated as in like drawing on a lot of the rich information that's present in this neural cognitive structure, and in order for it to be able to be kind of manipulated sufficiently for complex thought, you have to have what they call like broadcast, where some information that, let's say, it's coming through a sensory system, so it's kind of coming through one of these peripheral networks, but that whatever that information is, that little kind of snippet of visual sensory information, for example, if it's significant enough, let's say behaviorally significant enough, then it gets broadcast to the rest of the system and like available for access and actionable information processing in memory reasoning systems and motor processing systems and so on. So yeah, that idea has been around for, the Dehaene stuff was like late 90s and thereafter, and there was like a variant of it with Edelman and Tononi same time.
So yeah, I was gonna ask about that. Because I certainly, when I see these kind of consciousness models get talked about it somewhat practically, people usually bring up what's it called, like ITT? Where's
integrated information theory. Yeah. So that's
IT.
That's
yeah,
IIT, right? And
right.
And that's like partly that they stitched those two things together. So they took a kind of workspace type model, which was really what Edelman had been working on before. And then the IIT thing is not strictly speaking necessarily about networks. It's about mutual information.
Yeah.
Right. But they kind of like sit together. So you're thinking about, that part is the idea of like the phenomenology of consciousness is the result of a high level of integrated information in the human brain, or in a brain that is conscious. So like the similar ideas as the global workspace, like those two groups of people have been riffing off each other since the start, and riffing off other people like Bars, who were from a lot earlier. Yeah. And a funny thing as well is that those early papers from Edelman and Tononi, there's also actually in Edelman and Tononi's book, there's this like one or two figures that are these early graph theory models from Olaf Sporn's, and that's like 1995 or something, right? And before Olaf Sporn's was famous, and before connectomics was born in the mid noughties, and then you look at HBM, right? If you look at like abstracts and keywords in HBM today, versus when was the first HBM? Like 2000 or something, 96.
Yeah.
So around about that, to 96, something like that. So around about that time, like now it's like all connectivity, all connectomes, all this stuff. And RF spawns had a lot to do with that. And these like graph theory, brain network paradigm has really kind of come to the fore. But
and Rolf Cotter.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, a load of people, right? Not just one or two. So obviously like connectivity and connectomics and like it's kind of a lot of the updates of the dynamic core global workspace kind of ideas. Those have really kind of propagated through into mainstream neuroimaging and cognitive neuroscience. But Bengio was taking that and then adding in like deep learning and connectivity architectures and looking at, you know, how you kind of create functional systems with particular types of deep learning architectures. You know, I thought that was just cool, and it's cool that he's doing it because, you know, he's the boss. So.
Well, I mean, I believe he's been very you know, instrumental in the kind of Montreal push for AI and neuroscience links. I mean, you know, it'd be great to have somebody from Montreal speak to that, but.
Yeah, I honestly don't know very much about him really, apart from that, you know, he's one of the three.
Yeah.
But in deep learning, but yeah, he definitely seems pretty clued in. Like he definitely seems to know his stuff on the neuroscience side, because from not just been dabbling. Like he looks like he's been thinking about this for a long time.
Well, and I mean, I know that they've got an in-house. You know, they've got an in-house like neuroscience group at Mila now, and that sounds very much like his ICLR talk too, you know, which was definitely kind of pushing the same thing. I mean, I don't want to say it's. I mean, I think it's more than just, you know, a keynote talk in the sense that like I don't think it's just fashionable. I think they're really trying to do something. But I do, well, I mean, I think, you know, that there's definitely still some space between these kind of like cognitive models and like where we are with the kind of physiological brain science in terms of how to link those. And
yeah, it's the explanatory gap. That's what I would call it. And the figures that I have, and I've got like a little. I have this little slide that I use quite often now, where I've got like it's about computational neuroscience, but it kind of applies to cognitive neuroscience as well. And it's one half is thinking about information processing and you know, cognition and representation, and the other half is thinking about physiology and dynamics and dynamical systems and complex systems, you know, networks and stuff like that. And they're really like two separate, you know, non-overlapping magisteria, apart from the middle bit, which is the explanatory gap. But it's also like the holy grail, right? It's trying to kind of pull together these two domains of knowledge. So my slide has this amazing animation after I've explained this kind of picture of the field with like a picture of the Monty Python Holy Grail like flies down the middle. It says, "This is the Holy Grail." Right. Stitching together these things. And so, yeah, I mean, if Bengio is like developing cognitive architectures based on connectivity of complex networks, then it's bridging the gap.
Yeah. I would love to see more, and you know, the Montreal was running, you know, in some ways like the best hybrid conference in terms of Maine. You know, what was Maine? The Montreal AI Neuroscience Conference.
Yeah, I missed that. I heard a lot about it.
Yeah,
a few months back.
Wasn't it like, I forget if it was 2 years ago, didn't it overlap with NeurotechX? And in the sense that like, I think Sebastian Trigot, who joins us from Paris, I think got to catch that just because it was like right before or right after NeurotechX, and yeah, a good, definitely a good roster of people were part of that. I want to check what is so his Twitter is Jovo, he's the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab guy who did the like a lot of the computational stuff with Big Brain. And he was talking about just recently dropping the neural from neural networks. And they're like, come on, it's really like it's there for marketing, and it would help if we just talked about it as network science and stopped this link that's kind of, it's like it's promising and everything, but it's like fundamentally he wants to say it's misleading. I don't know if he's
That's difficult though, right? Because there's also network science, which is completely different.
Right.
That's graphs and networks and complex systems. It's not deep learning. It's not parallel distributed processing.
I'm gonna just double check his. I loved it in the sense of so his Twitter is neurodata, but he says Jovo. He's got, by the way, I think a very cool. That's so enabling terascale neuroscience. They've done some really great stuff, and yeah, Joshua Vogelstein. I thought it was a pretty good, it was a pretty good Twitter discussion. I don't think it's going to make any, it's going to get any traction anytime soon. But
so on the conference, otherwise, I mean, I've been diving in, so I've seen a few posters in my area, like some people in Australia doing good stuff on TMS modeling, and people. Some cool ideas about gradients and some cool ideas about a few posters on neural mass modeling that I've managed to dig out, but nothing like really to report back. But the big things to report back really is the open science room is kind of the shining light. And I think Russ Poldrack mentioned this, but I think I think everyone, it's kind of obvious. It's well organized. The website's good. There's lots of content. The HBM platform, again, this has been kind of somewhat discussed on social media, but I kind of wrote this on a private Slack channel about like 3 hours in. It's like the platform is just garbage. Yeah. It's like worse than the worst, shitty conference apps, and conference apps can be really shitty. But it doesn't let you bookmark things. It doesn't give you kind of more information. It doesn't give the name of the presenters on the schedule. Yeah.
I've listened in on some of the just the live streams in the open science room, and people are saying that like you had access to everybody else's poster too. That like they'd send out things like, please don't change the admin credentials of this account. like what? Like you gave us what?
But the other thing that's quite cool is they've been using this thing called GatherTown.
I was gonna.
Which I wouldn't be surprised if everyone's using this all the time soon. But it's a bit like like old Zelda, type thing, like a old like RPG 2D landscape. You're like a little really old school character avatar. But what it does is, like, when you're within a certain distance of other avatars in the landscape, then you can have conversations with them, and essentially like their faces appear up on your screen, like we're doing now, like a video call. Yeah,
dropped it in the chat there.
that
So-
really goes a long way to, I mean, the trick is then like scheduling, is like getting people there, and in a way that, you know, they can. So I think that's the next thing, but you know, it goes a long way. I think it could go a long way to adding to the adding that bit of natural interaction to the experience.
I mean, so for those who aren't, you know, familiar, you know, sorry for us, we're talking a little bit about our little research world here, but you know, human brain mapping kind of kept their fees pretty standard, in the sense that, like, they didn't really change for moving online, and in the way that some of the other conferences had. And one of the things that had been used to justify this was actually the cost of their conference platform. And so, you know, and it was kind of hard for people who were, you know, catching things. Plus, you put on, you know, a conference you organized in what, a month and a half, and it was that Crowdcast.
That was on Crowdcast.
Yeah,
and that was with a budget of less than $200.
Okay.
So like, you had to pay a few $100s to join a Zoom conference. That's I understand, it's a wild time.
I mean, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and there was thousands of people, and I've heard people going into a room with like 1,000 people where you're like trying to talk about something, and, you know, if you've ever been on a really active IRC or something, you know, that's, you need help to manage that, and you can't just have a single thread chat. So yeah. Anyway, so it didn't take very long for Jarek at the Center for Open Neuroscience to put together I mean, the Open Science Room was already, I posted that in the agenda for the meetup. By the way, the Open Science Room, while I'm posting that, it is free. So anybody can register for that and follow along. And there are terrific talks that, you know, are super relevant for everything NeurotechX. Although, you know, there's definitely going to be a lot of discussion of MRI. But, you know, the beautiful thing about the fMRI community in particular is how it's pushed open standards and fair data and open science, and made available a lot of community resources. You know, again, groups like Russ Poldrak and the Center for Reproducible Neuroscience with Open Neuro, and their push of bids and you know. Anyway, they I thought the use of Jitsi for poster, like just having, you know, like HPM plus your poster number, you know, like he quickly put together some things that, you know, off of existing infrastructure that would be better. Yeah. So
that seems to be the way that most computer things work. Instead of, you know, spinning something up yourself from scratch. Right. Yeah.
Right.
With
right.
Other people did the work.
and I didn't actually see how people were using, but they were using DataLad too. So it's and I don't know if that was including the new integration that DataLad has with OSF, but you know, certainly OSF would be so OSF-OIO would be an existing way to share, you know, materials and data and you know the raw bits for posters and papers, plus sharing the, you know, final PDFs and things. And I think that's what he was also sharing. Yeah. Anyway.
Anyway, there's plenty more to come. There's another, you know, almost another week of it. And there's going back over the stuff that one missed, which may or may not happen because there's so much of it. But,
yeah.
It's the option.
I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot there. I mean, it'd be great to go through and see. I mean, nothing. Did you see anything that was perhaps relevant to, you know, things that were more like EEG notebooks or you know, I don't want to say the challenge, but you know.
Well, I think there may have been things, but I didn't see them personally. But there was one talk in the open science room, which unfortunately, like, the audio quality was really bad, but it was about the low field MRI in Africa.
Okay.
As a kind of case for you know, a more economic technology. And I mean, low field MRI isn't something that you put together in your basement, but it's slightly less, you know, hardcore than high field MRI.
Yeah.
Low field MRI is, you know, I guess like between 0 and 1 Tesla, or between 0.5 and 1 Tesla.
Yeah.
And you can get like a decent structural image with that. And maybe you can do some functional imaging now. You hadn't necessarily been able to do that before. But there's a lot more that you can do with a 0.5 Tesla magnet than you can do with a 3 Tesla magnet. Like the energy consumption and the just general, you know, engineering are really quite different.
Sure.
So they were talking about that, and similar kinds of discussions about, these have been going on for a long time in the HBM community. It's not a new thing responding to recent events, but you know, trying to expand access globally, particularly to places like Africa and South America that are, you know, got a little bit less research money and funding and opportunity. So there tends to be a lot of discussions in that direction at this event, and you know, that's been going on for a long time. But there was things along those lines as well.
Yeah, for sure. And so related to that, I just want to a shout out for tomorrow's diversity conference call or video chat, and I posted in there some of the open science room discussions that related to that, and as well as, you know, experiences from people outside of, you know, North America, Europe, and you know, East Asia in terms of access to even conferences like this. Like, you know, why maintain those fees when you know, ICLR could do exactly the same conference for, you know, like an order of magnitude less almost. Yeah, so that'll be tomorrow, noon Pacific time, and, you know, check out the diversity channel on Slack.
Is that the only place that Meetup's currently linked, is in the Slack channel?
Yeah, I mean, so currently, yes, like that's just something that we've put together on Slack. But I will happily raise that issue in terms of can we? Yeah, I mean that seems like a great first topic in terms of can we make this meeting about inclusivity be more publicly accessible? Yeah.
Or just even within the Slack, unless you're part of that channel, you will not get notified.
Yeah, I mean, Abby did post on. She posted it in general first.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I didn't see that, but it should definitely probably be reposted today and then tomorrow, an hour before the meeting. Like, since I also host a lot of Noise Bridge meetings, people get very angry when stuff isn't reposted a lot, and also maybe even on the meetup. Like, it's amazing how low turnout is, even when you think you're doing proper distribution. And especially on a topic like diversity, one of the big problems Noise Bridge has had is that some of our most diverse voices do not use Slack at all. Because, and then there's others who don't use Facebook. Like, and some of the times it's personal reasons, but other times it's because they don't want to support companies that have had bad diversity themselves, which I think Slack's been doing a pretty good job, but like places like Facebook and all sorts of different places have been rightly coming under fire for lack of diversity and stuff like that. So I just think making sure you think about how to best get this to the correct people as well.
Sure. You know, in our defense, you know, this was our first meeting, and these are exactly the kinds of things that we're going to be talking about, and yeah, it was just trying to find a core group of people that were interested in working on this, right? But all good points. Thanks, Ryan. And I just wanted to mention, since we were talking, you know, I did think, like John mentioned, like there were some interesting things that came up with OHBM in terms of kind of infrastructure and tools, and I saw some discussion of Rocket Chat. So I didn't know if anybody had used that previously, or I mean, I still really, you know, it's
Noise Bridge used Rocket Chat for a long time. I personally haven't used it, but like Noise Bridge, we've tried everything pretty much. And right now, the main thing we're using for things like forums and communication, other than Slack, is a system called Discourse.
Sure.
Which
so, the reason I mention it is because, you know, leaving aside all my, you know, my petty issues with Slack, is that NeurotechX doesn't pay for it. So we don't have a history of our messages, and that's crazy, you know. And I know we've talked about this before, and you know, but it's like we should have a proper wiki, you know, and you know the learn.neurotech.edu.com, you know, is really like a GitHub site. It's like a GitHub Pages site, and it's the, you know, in addition to it being kind of like where we point people to for you know, our device, I don't want to call it recommendations, but just like our device breakout and our tutorials and things like that, like it's still a pretty, you know, it's not an easy thing to update and add content where, you know, we could be easily at, you know, we should have something where we're just at least adding links to new devices in a list. I think that's definitely more like the awesome, you know, the awesome BCI list and GitHub. Is that?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, GitHub's useful. I like if you want to like look at, discuss, or also since NeurotechX is, if I remember correctly, a nonprofit.
Yeah. Yeah.
We should get a free unlimited account from Slack if we talk to the right people.
Oh, okay.
Like
Okay.
NoiseBridge has
I thought you were gonna give me like, yeah, like we you know, we've earned it, so to speak. But talk to the right people. What's that mean?
I mean, like that's the hard part. Same with like the reason NoiseBridge have been trying to move the discourse is we can self-host the system. It is almost completely open source. Their documentation and help desk, in a sense, of people who help build it is extremely diligent. And it's also a very simple forum software to use, and you can integrate it with Slack. Like you can cross post from it into Slack pages, which I've helped set up for NoiseBridge. And also you wouldn't have a limited backlog. Though it can get, if you use it a lot, it gets big. So you want a good server.
This is Discourse?
Yeah. Like NoiseBridge, our system on using Discourse is called Discuss, which makes it even more confusing. And then the GameBridge group also uses Discord. And yeah, it's because I know like Neurotech SF has a Discord group. Though that a while back got spammed pretty hard.
Sorry, did you say Neurotech SF?
Yeah. Or we've had a Discord almost as long as we had a Slack. Or let me go find which the exact name. Oh yeah. It was, wait just a second. Yeah, it was Micah helped start it. It's called NeuroHackSor. It isn't really being used at all anymore, but
well, I mean, I know that Yannick and Brian would love to, you know, I mean, they want to know that they're managing their, you know, NeurotechX's resources. And so far, I mean, you know, there's been talk of a you know, an infrastructure revamp. But I still haven't seen it, and it makes posting anything in Slack really you know,
annoying,
disheartening in the sense that like you know, I need to also save this somewhere else, you know. And so I've been using, but you know, for this particular group, I wish I could say that, you know, I mean, I post things in our Facebook group that is our Neurotech SF Facebook group, or, you know, messenger group that we've had since, you know, 2015, right?
Yeah, that's
But I know now that doesn't actually reach all these people in the sense of you know, everybody who joins us currently. And so, yeah, anyway, I saw people talking about Rocket Chat because they were also kind of asking for a similar kind of discussion facility.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd mention it. So trying to keep us on agenda, and it's sort of 7:00, and now would be the time to ask John if there's any updates on the EEG notebooks and/or Open BCI challenge that you'd like to talk about.
There's updates. It's code. It's mainly Jaden actually. So Jaden's finished his rejig of BrainFlow notebooks. The kind of abstraction refactor or minimal kind of. Is Jaden on the call, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Good job, Jaden. I'm just going over your stuff now. I pushed one or two small things earlier this evening, and I'm just trying to fill in. So I think I mentioned this last time, but yeah, like together we kind of hatched a plan, and then this week Jaden's like done a good job. Jaden, really good job of implementing the plan, of coming up with something that's kind of device agnostic sufficiently to account for OpenBCI and Muse. So, and he's done the OpenBCI bits, and now I'm working on the Muse bits.
Awesome.
So that's the update.
That's great, and that's all on Jaden's GitHub currently, right?
Yeah, it's in a separate branch right now, and I'll share the link to it.
Cool. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so check that out, and definitely if anyone wants to kind of chip in on this general kind of work on that, then get in touch with us. You know, like as a reminder, it's a library for doing primarily cognitive neuroscience type experiments with simple consumer EEG systems, and we're making some adjustments to it for a project that's happening this summer that we're working with a company called OpenBCI on. OpenBCI manufacture a few quite popular EEG devices, and so we're working with them on that. The other update on that front actually is we came up with a name. We had a kind of brainstorm. That was like the main thing. We had a call last Friday, and I think the main thing we actually talked about was we were like brainstorming on a name for about an hour. And I can't remember what it is off the top of my head.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, it was.
Gotta write these things down.
Oh no, I remember. It was was it the Neurotech challenge? We came up with like a kind of.
It was like a weird, multifaceted. It made sense if we could say it right now, but it had like an element. It was like Neurotech Challenge Summer 2020, I think.
Okay.
And then there was like a subtitle that was like EEG Challenger.
Yeah, there were like 3 layers of subtitle went there, but we came with this like entity Neurotech Challenge, which we were aware kind of slightly overlaps with Neureka, but fuck it. And that was like sufficiently general that we thought we could envisage that being something that is a thing that
I found it.
Continues. You got it?
It's the Neurotech Challenge Series Summer 2020 EEG presented by Neurotech and OpenBCI. With that presented by won't be included in everything, obviously.
There you go. So the Neurotech Challenge Series. This is what.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a statement of intent right there.
I hope that means that it won't be the last.
Yeah, that you presented in a way that it makes people who want to join be like, okay, more of this will happen. It's not a one-time deal, which I think can kind of disappoint a lot of people if it's a one-time thing. So yeah, having it as a series is really cool.
Yeah,
So,
we actually one of the things that was a useful reference point is the BrainHack website, and the BrainHack website has, you know, years of dozens of international, you know, international as in like events going on all over the world, and they're all kind of grouped together. And it's like, so I kind of had that in the back of my head when I was thinking, like, in 5 years' time, we want to have like this website with all these neurotech challenges that have all happened and like summaries of, you know, cool shit that happened under this umbrella. But that is extremely ambitious. And first things first.
Well, I mean, I saw when you know, posted BrainHack, and I thought, you know, like this could be a BrainHack event in the sense that, like, you know, a somewhat non-traditional one, but one fully within the, you know, the BrainHack, you know, philosophy, or, you know, ethos.
Yeah, I think no, they'll definitely. I mean, actually, in a way, I kind of got into this in a BrainHack because I met the first time I met people from Neurotech TO was at a BrainHack in Toronto in like 2016 or something, and so that was a thing that we were kind of doing in a small way at our local things. But no, I do think sometime in the next few years, it's just a scheduling thing. So, for example, like this year, it was kind of a rush, and also I inadvertently organized the conference at the same time as BrainHack, so I couldn't do that at this BrainHack. But sometime in the future, we'll definitely do some kind of, maybe some, you know, neat combination of a Neurotech challenge and a BrainHack event. That would be a good idea.
And are you going to be teaching at the school this summer? Is it the Kremble?
Yep. That's in a few weeks.
I mean, that's like just in a few weeks, right? Like, yeah. Okay.
Busy times.
Busy is so, I mean, that's awesome. And is it clear into like what the scope of it will be, and the experiments that you're gonna try and propose, or?
We didn't get any further in nailing that down yet. That is kind of on our to-do list. Is to at the moment, basically, we're saying it's going to be some subset or full set of the M170, the P300, and the SSVP experiments. So it's either going to be one of those or all of them, or take your pick from those. And that's like a decision we need to make. And then there's a question of like prioritizing. So, you know, there'll be some keynotes who want to put in dozens of hours, but most people won't.
Sure.
So there's, you know, keeping some kind of prioritization on one of those, which would probably be the M170, seems like a likely course of action. But at the same time, we probably don't want to overly narrow it. So we need to come up with we need to decide on the way it's framed in terms of what we want people to do and how we want them to do it and what priority we want them to do things in. But maximally at this point, it's going to be M170, P300, and SSVP.
Let me. So I just I don't know if you saw, I posted the links to in Slack on the you know, the ERP lab people, you know, Steve Luck et al. Are doing some you know, an intro to ERPs and also like decoding ERPs. And anyway, I was on their site when I saw this, that it was only announced like a couple weeks ago, June 7th, ERP Core, a freely available online resource we developed for the ERP community. And and focused on N170, mismatch negativity, N2 PC, N400. Anyway, from certainly from the group whose book we had to read when, when I was a student.
Yeah, great book.
At ERPs.
I learned a lot from that book.
And
Hi guys, I had a question about this project. Several people are asking on Slack, oh, can you get attention off the frontal electrodes? And there may be or may not be a way of doing some math of beta over theta or something like this. I wonder, John, if some of your more advanced students want to do something like that, and bam, you slap a logo on it and put a website on it, and you have a new company, a brain training for attention, something like this.
You mean in the challenges thing, or?
Yeah, in the challenges thing, or your class. If your class has, I'm guessing you have access to eager beavers, students who wanted to make the next startup.
Yeah, there's a few of them knocking around. It's true. I don't know a lot about alpha over beta and attention indices. Actually, something that's not an area of expertise for me.
That
So
sounds like something that Neurosity works on a lot.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of it is where you put the electrodes, and frontal electrodes are not great for a number of reasons.
Right.
Many, at least two people have asked in recent past year or two, hey, can you get attention off Muse or frontal electrodes? So, I'm just wondering, with hackathons and with your students, maybe you can suggest that.
well, I mean, it's funny because certainly NERS people are going to say that they can get attention from the forehead.
Sure. Yeah, and that's So that's what this Mendy.io is all about.
So I wanted to I did want to go through those, Suhas, in terms of the devices you linked. I haven't had a chance to look at any of them. So I don't know if anybody saw. Did you post that in EEG data or
neurofeedback?
Neurofeedback. Right.
Sure, I can briefly talk about them, but yeah. So there's.
Could you?
Are other people interested?
Well, I want to let. I do want to just finish up in terms of at least finished up with updates and things to talk about. John,
on our side, yeah. Hopefully, we bring, well, like I said, like an hour-long meeting to get a name. It was very important that we got it, but hopefully we'll kind of have more substantial, concrete things to report back on in the next week or two. We should do. We're kind of somewhat on track. We're possibly a little bit behind schedule, but we're somewhat on track still. The general aim is, well, initially, like the discussions, we said July or August to roll it out, and Joe kind of tends to be saying like July, and seems to have forgotten that we said July or August. And I always thought August was a much more plausible. So we'll see how it goes.
Gotcha. Well, it's still great, and super thanks, Jaden, for keeping software on track. And yeah,
he's the boss. He's the boss. You're my favorite person in the world at the moment, Jaden.
Appreciate it.
That's awesome. And yeah, so I know that Suhas posted. I think you posted in general first, right? And then
yes, that's right.
Carried it over to neurofeedback. But you had I think like four recent devices.
Yeah.
And so do you have you have them pulled up? Can you share a window? You know, can you browser?
Let me just copy paste them into this JIT thing. Let's see if this will work. Okay, so the first one is NeoRhythm, which is you know, injects magnetic waves into the skull. And depending on where you put it, if you put it over the
Wait. I mean, let's not run straight past that. It does what now?
some sort of TMS, I'm guessing.
Oh wait, no. So I think I saw this came up on Slack too with Graham Moffat, didn't it?
We've discussed this a few times, I think. This was
isn't it like
Indiegogo thing?
Yeah, this is the one that's that says that doesn't it call itself like something like low power TMS?
Yeah,
but
they're
we're
pretty
all confused,
elusive
right?
on the technology.
But it's
I
like
don't want to
it's
scare
wireless.
people with transcranial. I mean, what is that? Sounds very medical. So I don't know precisely, but
Well, I think it's important that we get.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
for
that
sure.
Transcranial would be TCDS, wouldn't it?
Well, so they call it low intensity RTMS or
That's correct.
TPEMF.
TP.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Okay, I think it's not clear what that is.
Yeah. Well, it's either isn't TMS also transcranial?
Yeah, I was mistaken. I was confusing the transdirect current stimulation.
Yeah.
But yeah,
TDCS,
transcranial.
The low power is the kind
TMS.
of red flag here. The low power part. So
Yeah.
Right.
you know,
So
TMS is high power for a reason, is because you need to generate a rather strong magnetic field to penetrate the head.
Yeah.
So anything with like low power magnetic field. I mean, that said, like there is some interesting work and some cool guys at Duke who've done some stuff that on kind of brain responses to just static magnets. So there is like, I think it's probably understudied, and maybe they're following up on that is like the influence of low intensity magnetism on biological tissue and brain tissue. But generally, you know, people in the kind of brain stimulation world, the concern is that something that's like a low energy magnetic field would just not be having any effect on the brain.
Yeah. So there's a number of things I would be useful for community to sort out. One is the technology. How does it actually work? How much does it cost? 3, what functions can it claim to boost? And 4 or 5. Anyway, how well does this stuff work? I think a lot of it is placebo effect, and that's okay. You know, there's a lot of brain training, which is a lot of placebo effect. So anyway, I think Yannick was trying to collect a list of companies, but I thought, you know, that's going to take a while for he and his colleagues to come up with. But in the meantime, I was just wondering if there's any, if anyone had tried these out. Nirvana is another one, which is pretty interesting. Vagus nerve stimulation through the ear for relaxation. For whatever reason, it only. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I'd do that.
So I just wanted to say I dropped a link to the YouTube. All the talks from the NIBS workshop are now available on YouTube. So these are the people who are doing the computational physics modeling of TMS and TES, right? So you know. What would help with NeoRhythm is to get a you know some actual specs, and you can then see you know how potentially is that you know what kind of effects in the actual tissue are you getting at the level at which they're
Yeah, good luck. Good luck.
that'd be really important. You know, because like I'm not exactly with you on the placebo effect is okay when they're obviously marketing it. Well, they're not marketing it as placebo effect. So like yeah. These are pretty bold claims, and as I remember it, you know, like I couldn't find any references to TPEMF.
Sure.
But anyway, vagus nerve. You know, there's a number of devices. You know, but super interesting. A lot of interest in big companies like Abbott and Medtronic and yeah, and a lot of literature on this. I don't, you know, I was really hoping the woman who's joined us previously from Dallas is going to give us a talk in July on their vagus nerve or their vagus nerve stuff. UT, you know, she's at UT Dallas, and yeah, very interested to see more on that.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know anybody who's tried it and like and I'm still not quite sure about the ear.
Yeah. Anyway,
so
as you mentioned, I think it was one of the big companies got a recent.
GE. So GE had that recent paper that I linked in. I'm sorry if I forget whether it was on Slack or
Sure.
previously, but we'll definitely get back to it in July. And you know, GE Research has papers and patents on a lot of things that they also don't ever come out with a product on.
Okay. Sure.
You know, you know, they have a patent on EIT, by the way.
What's EIT?
The electrical impedance tomography.
Okay.
So, you know, but if you then read the patents, it's like 2012. If you read the patent, it's like it covers all like physics into the body and physics out of the body.
Okay.
If you look into history, GE has patents on almost literally everything, and like a ton of scientists I know have had either worked or their parents worked at the Albany Schenectady GE laboratory, including my grandfather and stuff. And the amount of research they started in like the 50s in things from nanotechnology to brain computer research, like they were doing research on different types of stimulation and sensing back then that only now is viable. Like a lot of like looking through G patents is one of those things that it's a fun pastime because you'll be like, how the fudge did they figure this all out? Because it's like 30, 40 years ahead of it being applicable.
But many times you write down an idea before you can do it.
True.
I've done it.
So, I just you know, somewhat unrelated, somewhat related, but just dropped a link in for the IMSTK interactive medical simulation toolkit from Kitware. You know, and like Kitware kind of grew out, you know, everybody, or I think most people probably know VTK, ITK, and if you build open source software, you know, CMake. These, you know, that's all brought to you Kitware. Kitware kind of came out as a spin-off from GE Research up in Albany, and anyway, they've got some stuff. This and Pulse which I think are somewhat relevant software projects that are, neurotech-ish. This is a bit more medical than our usual. Pulse people might be more interested in, but sorry, nobody knows any of the backstory of Nirvana in terms of how they managed to get an ear stimulation to the vagus nerve.
I didn't look it up. No.
Okay. I mean, certainly there are other devices. I'm gonna have to. I want to check Slack, but I'm just hoping that my message hasn't disappeared. But there was somebody doing patches, not in the ear, but like right behind, and they were almost like disposable patches. Does anybody remember this product?
I remember it. I can't remember the name or anything, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, let me see if I can shoot. Wow, yeah, messages from.
Interesting. So the gentleman behind Nirvana is a medical doctor. So okay, I mean he's got some better background betting than I have. But again, I don't know if it works or not. So there's another one, Mendy, which is this FNIR sensor. There's another one called Focus, which measures your EEG and then delivers audio to entrain brain frequencies. There's another one coming out of Japan, which is similar. I forget the name. But anyway,
can you link those ones? I've been showing these on stream as we've been talking about it, or on the recording.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put them. It'll take me a little while to find them. But anywho, I'm just hoping that somebody has gone through.
So you said this is FNIRS?
Yeah, that's what they say. I think. Yeah, or it's definitely some sort of photo thing. Another one that's similar to this. Oh yes, Blueberry or something like this. Where
Blueberry, we've had John on. We've had the Blueberry developer talk about his project.
Yeah, we know those guys.
Yeah. And
they're our friends.
I don't know if Josh is Josh on. But yeah, I mean they're definitely FNIRS. I'm just trying to find on the Mendy site an actual
videos. There's like definitely just some light being injected in.
Yeah. What's it say under how it works?
Yeah.
I mean it strikes me from their material like they're not saying anything that necessarily gives me a clue as to whether this is EEG or news.
Okay. Let me see. There was a Vilight was another one. Photobiomodulation. So it turns out if you stick light up the nose, through the ears, and in the forehead, no joke, you're actually going to create ATP in the brain. So anyway, I'm just throwing it out to the community. Hopefully somebody has gone through the trouble of trying these things. I want to spend $300 times 6. Vilight, I think, is something like $2,000. Just to be like, yeah, I tried it, it worked. No, it's poop.
Well, I mean, there's a case to be made for, like there's these unboxing or not unboxing, but like,
I've looked
Are
at
there any neurotech YouTuber like tech channels yet.
I was thinking we could branch into that genre.
I'd be quite.
I've been considering starting a YouTube channel based on it. So
I'd be interested. I would. It would almost be worth it. I mean, I'm hoping that there's some sensors that you could reuse once you've taken this apart. That's.
I definitely think that's something we could, as a group, do if we start getting more of this hardware to test, and then also try integrating some of it, see what happens.
Well, so my son was making fun of the very low number of views. Do you think that our YouTube would get more views if we took apart devices? And
I personally, I don't think so. I think if you give a testimonial or a breakdown, then you link to the site, and there's a reveal. You got to pay for the reveal. That's
premium members.
Exactly.
Like here.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it would be good if there was a way, for Neurotech's different chapters to get bits of funding, like a Patreon account or something to help us purchase this stuff, since almost all the research and stuff, all this stuff's being shared, but we aren't really able to buy a lot of this stuff. Then again, a lot of this stuff, the really nice stuff, is expensive enough that not a single tech YouTuber will go near it.
Well,
I haven't seen any YouTuber unbox a $150,000 EG headset.
Sure. Well, I think this is exactly what a Neurotech SF Bitcoin account could be behind. Is help us buy equipment that we take apart online. I saw Sci-Hub just moved to Bitcoin.
Oh yeah. We could also work with iFixit, because that's one of the groups. They take apart everything, and one thing people are starting to get more of are different types of biological trackers, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And knowing a repair guide for something like this, people don't want big investments to be screwed up, and a lot of these devices are pretty delicate. So,
so in just so you know, the last link I dropped in was for the multi-locus TMS from Finland. If you want cool picture of TMS, and what is, I mean, it's just a recent press release. They've been working on this for a while. It's actually comes out of a grad student's PhD thesis 10 years ago, but some very cool stuff that they've got a long history of there, and it'll be I don't know. I don't see if they had any. I'm sure they've got a poster. Anyway, I was looking in the brain stimulation channel on Slack, and I saw. Let me just see. Did you have a link for that photo biomodulation?
Vielight, VIE light.
Vielight.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, no, there was.
Yeah, this is kind of. Oh wait, is it UV light, or is it
I think it's infrared.
frequency?
Infrared. Yeah.
Is it oscillating light? Like flickering light?
don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there was that work from a while ago that was showing that you could basically like remove some Alzheimer's pathologies with flickering light stimulation.
Yep. Sure, from MIT. I forget the lady's name.
Yeah.
Um,
This is maybe
that's at a much. Yeah, that's actually through the eyes, but this is through your skull and your nose.
Oh, right.
So
I've heard of this. Yeah, no, I have heard of this thing. I've seen pictures of it. I don't know much about it. The science behind it.
So I have I worked with a lady who worked at a sort of pseudo clinic or clinic adjacent, and she used it on her patients. She used it herself. She's like, yeah, it's like an extra cup of coffee, or like a cup of coffee. So I was like, oh.
I just dropped the link in there.
Yeah. So I'm hearing it from her as opposed to a random YouTube unboxing video. I was like, okay, there might be something here, you know.
Well, I mean, as you know, as nuts as that's going to look to some people, you know, you've got these tube up your nose. I have you know, I've seen some I want to say some animal work on this, but definitely like I don't think anybody knows what you're doing.
Who cares? If it's a cup of coffee, hey, you know, people are abusing ADD. Why not put some light up your nose? Can't be worse than ADD.
But at least they give me, you know, they're giving me at least more details about what the device is doing rather than Mendy.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really like not, you know, one of the biggest hurdles of the companies moving in this sector is form factor and looking cool and not something that looks kind of completely crazy. And these guys just don't care about that. They've just gone all in.
They've gone for
I mean, I love in sci-fi where they have like these setups that just look like you put on pretty much a baseball cap or headphones or something, and it's all clean looking. But in reality, it's going to look like that, but with like 20 other different things on your head. And yeah, we're going to look like Borg. Where
do they say how much? Shop.
It's about $2,000.
2,000, really?
Yeah.
Okay, it's just an infrared light. Well, I mean, we could do, again, we need to talk to Josh and see if we can make this for 200.
Okay.
I mean, are the sensors on the side doing something else? Because like, why are they saying like gamma, alpha? I mean, other than
it's an EEG, right? It looks like an EEG.
Is it EEG too?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I mean,
I'm just guessing from the
no, that would make sense, but it's like at the same time, like if it's not EEG and they're using things like gamma and alpha, then I'm a little worried.
I mean, it does say there's gamma, alpha, like different wavelengths. If you go to the technology and then via light intranasal technology, it does show some different interesting types of
there's a paper.
connection sets. It looks like these might be soft.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody at the Nuffield. Okay.
So guys,
let's see. Well, I see they're citing Nunez and Srinivasan. So that's definitely EEG.
my kind of people.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, wait. Sorry for Okay. All right. So I thought this would have something to do with photo biomodulation, but that seems to be a paper about
Biomarkers of aging.
biomarkers of oscillatory activity that are derived from EEG.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where they get the connection between like a 40 hertz pulse of infrared will stimulate, will give you. Oh, sorry, did everybody see this picture too? This is cool. I like that.
Oh,
That's my new avatar. That's gonna be my new avatar.
We do a big, Halloween is a big deal here in the city, in particular on our street.
oh God, yeah.
Yeah, we're half a block off of Belvedere, so like thousands of people come, and I think I know what we're gonna set out.
Yeah, just or put one of those on a pumpkin, and
Oh, that's awesome. So there was a just so that people, there's a link to this on their site. I'm on the shop, and so right here there's a link to it, but this pulse rate differs from the 10 hertz pulse rate of the neuro alpha. Okay. Oh, and
there's one that has both. There's like gamma, alpha, and then there's duo.
Okay, what do we got here? Who's on this?
I'm curious, is the infrared light hot if they're shining it through a nostril?
It shouldn't, or certainly this dosimetry will. Let me just see what their. I guess I'm gonna have to.
Oh. Yeah, I mean that just said it was like 608 nanometer near infrared or something, 671 and 808 nanometer. Yeah, that wouldn't heat the skin at all. That's not low enough infrared. And also these are probably very low power LEDs. Like,
I love this tokamak plasma control. So I'm just curious. I mean, what it should be saying is the typical. I'm trying to see what they're saying different than the typical NIRS story about absorption, hemoglobin absorption, and differential hemoglobin absorption on the basis of oxygenation. But they're definitely. And has this? I haven't heard of this being used. Why they're particularly focused on Parkinson's? Well, I will. I don't want to bore people with me just skimming through the paper, but
Well, Parkinson's makes sense. You're going up the nose.
sure. No, I mean it does give you easier access to the brain, right? And certainly, like there are nasal, you can insert receiver coils nasally, or you can you can get electrodes nasally, and obviously that's also one of the places where you can remove some neurons nasally with well, yeah, they're doing that back in Oxford. And and
I thought you were going to say back in ancient Egypt.
Yeah, I was
Right,
about
right.
to say they were also doing
I'm
that
talking
in
about-
Egypt.
I'm
They were really good neuroscientists.
talking about last year. Yeah. So, you can do it as an outpatient, procedure.
Why are they removing neurons through the for epilepsy?
For psychiatric research.
Okay, who's signing up to have their neurons removed?
Well, I mean, it's
Disease populations.
non-noticeable removal, content removal,
Okay.
and it's just to get some cells that are then used in stem cell research.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
And you can do, there are differences in terms of making stem cells from people's neurons versus, say, their skin cells.
Gotcha.
And that's one of the only places in the brain that does neurogenesis, the olfactory cortex.
Yeah.
Right?
Cool.
And there really are papers about, because I mean it's the same problem with EEG as it is with I mean it's somewhat different, right? I mean it's like there's fMRI distortion for like orbital frontal and some frontal cortex, but if you stick electrodes up the nose, you can get better, some better frontal cortex signal than with your traditional scalp electrodes. Anyway, I think we're gonna have to say that I don't want to say jury, but like the the consensus on this particular photobiomodulation is not yet decided. But hey, look, they are using they're using Fang and Boaz's MCX algorithm.
Dang, this is a lot more better thought out and researched than some of these Indiegogo.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great to have more of these groups on, get to try and hear what they're doing, and like, I mean, it would also be great publicity for them. But like, yeah, this one definitely seems to have the research behind it, compared to the other ones where it's kind of harder to figure out what research they're using.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I'll say like they're doing like, or at least this particular paper. I don't know, again, we don't know how connected this paper is with the actual equipment manufacturer and, the team behind it. But this particular paper, they're really trying to figure out with finite element modeling how much of that light is making it to these subcortical structures. I still don't know what I mean, this could be, it's one way potentially if you could get a drug to kind of bind there and then you light it up or something. I don't know. Like I'm trying to think of some,
if you use something like quantum dots, which I think theoretically you can have quantum dots that can transverse the blood-brain barrier, but that they're almost as small as carbon nanotubes, some actually smaller. And if those receive any very specific light, they'll react and emit at a specific wavelength.
And this was the kind of thing that was covered at the Nano Neuro conference, and also there was another another conference that was focused on, maybe that was at a Brain Initiative meeting, PI meeting too, in terms of focus on next generation kind of like optogenetic methods and materials.
You guys can check out these pictures, very detailed diagrams of what's affecting the mitochondria and this and that. Yeah, it's not something we're going to figure out within the next 5 or 10 minutes.
Well, I will say, so I don't know if let me find a link to this. So did everybody see that there's a new TFUS paper, transcranial focused ultrasound neuromodulation paper in depression?
I saw that you sent it to me. I haven't had the chance to look at it yet, though.
Yeah, let me. Yeah, give me 1 second. So, double-blind pilot study of TFUS as a 5-day intervention, or well, they just call it TUS, and yeah. FUS has an acronym problem in that everybody seems to use different combinations of letters to. Anyway, but you've got Joseph Sanguinetti and William Tyler on this. I mean, Samantha Resnick is the first author, and great group who's got a long history of developing focused ultrasound. Especially as neuromodulatory device, and let me see if I can just. So Jamie Tyler had a nice post on LinkedIn in terms of like a little like extra commentary on there. On there, just 1 sec. Oh yeah, so 2 things. So then there's also this. I thought this was a cool. So just a little blurb in Science, or yeah, it wasn't Science May. But that wasn't what I was thinking about, which was, yeah, here we go. So I don't know how to, if I don't know if this will work as a link for everybody, but that will give you Jamie's post. But he linked to their companies. So NeuroFuss. And what's the other one? Oh, maybe it was Think that I was talking about. Yeah, the Zing. This is these were the disposable neurostimulation patches. Sorry, I'm mixing things up. I know I was talking about NeuroFuss, but this is the kind of this is the broad scope that that Jamie Tyler has in terms of I believe he was involved with Think, and this is a
this is another. Somebody should just do ultrasound. By the way, I believe it was Ryan who was mentioning patents that come out before the technology is ready. I remember reading a patent in like 1996 by Sony on how ultrasound can control the brain, and now here we are. 25 years later. So anywho, here's an opportunity to somebody take this technology. Ultrasound isn't that super expensive. Figure it out, put it in a nice headset, and do an Indiegogo, and
so NeuroFuss and it's like IS. Here's the other one. Sorry if my LinkedIn link is not useful, but here's the other company, and I'd love to I'd love to know how much these devices are.
What does this Zing thing do? It doesn't say. It's neurostimulation, and then
so
targeting the greater auricular nerve.
Yeah.
Okay. Targeting how?
Well,
with
in that
electricity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So these are like disposable, bioelectronic medicine patches.
Yeah.
I did found the paper that was on their page. I did posted it in, but then again, it's yeah. We'll see. This looks pretty interesting.
I mean, it's a good group.
This is interesting. 2 years ago, I interned at Monty's lab at UCLA.
Okay.
Where, they used ultrasound on the coma patients.
Okay.
To recovery. So the ultrasound device is pretty big. Like it fills up a small room.
Really?
Yeah, because it has a big like computer to control, like to direct the ultrasound source on the brain, and it takes some 3D calibration to focus on a specific area.
Sure. Well, so and there's been some real improvements in terms of the ultrasound, cranial ultrasound, and there's it'll take me a while to find it, but there's a new paper from Paris that's specifically. The big issue with ultrasound, cranial ultrasound, is dealing with what's on the other side of the skull properly. In other words, having a good model for the skull. And now, what were they trying to do for the coma patients? Like, was it neuromod? I mean, was it like stimulation?
Yeah, it was stimulation. It is actually partner with Mark Cohen. I
Oh, really?
saw,
Mark
yeah,
Cohen. Okay. So Mark's in that Science Mag. He's interviewed in the Science, or he's got a little quote in the Science Mag. Cool.
That's I think 2 years ago they had the first prototype. Yeah, it was still very new.
Okay.
Yes, a lot of improvements since then.
Okay. Well, if you've got a link from the lab,
Yeah.
please drop it in the chat. I'm curious. And that is so neuroadrenergic activities.
I think I was chatting with him about this in Milan a few years ago, 2 years ago.
What, Mark Cohen or?
Yeah. And I think that because they're also, well, they were doing that, and they were doing some new coil design for MRI scan. No, they were doing new TMS coil design.
Cool.
But yeah, they were also something kind of special, better.
Okay.
But yeah, they were also doing FUS, and it sounded pretty impressive.
Okay. Well, I will see if we can get him to come talk about what some of the stuff they're doing. I saw I forget if it was MagStim. No, what's the other? Like very small coils. Shoot.
TMS company?
Yeah, TMS company.
MagVenture?
Maybe. Let me. Anyway, I wanted to. I mean, this neuromodulation for depression. 5-day double blind. Not bad. And we certainly know from imaging that it's a very specific. It's very. You can make it very focal. Yeah, let me see if I see that MagVenture. MagVenture's focused specifically on depression?
Not sure.
Yeah. I think this was
That's what I'm getting it from. It's a MagVenture.
So let me see if I can. Yeah, they've got a new. They call it a cool B70 AP coil.
Was this like brand new?
Certainly like a week ago.
Interesting, because the place that I go to just actually got a new coil in this week.
Okay.
And it's supposed to, I guess, reach deeper into the brain. But they tried it on me yesterday, and it legitimately hurt. I had to have them stop.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And so I don't know if I wouldn't doubt that they just didn't calibrate it properly because the staff there is questionable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was significantly stronger, like to the point where I was shocked. No pun intended, but also
John mentioned temporal interference TES earlier, and Ed Boyden stuff, and this is it's part of the, I want to say Holy Grail, but is like that you don't have to stimulate the intervening tissue, and you can just hit the target with the dose that you want, right? And that you have this problem of making TMS and to some degree TES, well, not to some degree, TES as well, making it focal and not, getting it strong enough, especially with electricity, like you get through the skull, but not, making your face twitch as you're stimulating.
But I think that is the V coils, right? Which
Okay.
maybe that's what you had, Jaden. Like they kind of they've got like a 45-degree angle in them, so that they kind of almost sit on the head like a hat. And sometimes they're kind of round, but they're rather than like the flat figure of 8 coils, the V coils are, the design is so that you do get this kind of intersection of two magnetic fields, somewhere around the midline, and that allows kind of greater depth, like you were saying. So there's variants of that with TMS, like you said, kind of. It's not interference in terms of temporal interference, not like smart, but it's kind of interference.
I mean, again, like I point everybody to the YouTube channel for the NIBS workshop, in terms of looking at people who, are doing the right kind of computational physics to figure out, how best to design these. And anyway, I posted a link to the Mag Venture, and which has, at least data sheets. I don't know if it's got, and of course, it is an investigational device. Yeah. The Alto press release is a multi-locus TMS, so they're definitely trying to do something more like the temporal interference, or at least using multiple coils to field shape. But yeah, I'd love to. I've asked Joseph. I've asked Sanguinetti if they're doing any high density EEG with these patients and the neuromodulation, and we'll see.
Has anyone who's been using these coil-based magnetic like resonance systems tried also incorporated EIT and using electrical fields along with the magnetic fields, and seeing if those interfere, or if you can like get like first order electromagnetic relations in the way you can with like most electronics that work from a interaction of an electronic and magnetic field.
Well, I know that EGI was originally trying to do EIT so that you could understand that person's skull with the high density EEG, right? You're basically doing skull EIT so that then you could do the proper, everything else would be properly calibrated for, that person's head. In terms of trying to combine the stimulations, I certainly don't know of anything. But again, I would say that you'd still you could do this in SimNibs. if that would be any of any use. It's certainly it's really helpful to have the electrical and magnetic sensors. Like you can always do better imaging with those complementary fields because they are complementary. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like it's hard enough figuring out what the effects of just a simple, quote, simple electrical or a simple magnetic field are, in terms of the modeling and the physics, at least anyway. So having like higher order interactions between the two, in a way, people are interested in that from the point of view of brain function, because there's this thing called apoptic coupling, which is when you have either electrical or magnetic fields generated by neurons that influence other neurons without having chemical or electrical synapses. So it's like brain connectivity or neural interactions mediated via local electrical or magnetic fields. And that idea has been around a long time, and it's kind of been somewhat demonstrated, but the scale of that in terms of normal brain functioning is still not really understood very well. And it's the kind of thing that people, they ignore for as long as they can, because it makes things really complicated. If you're thinking about, we're trying to just understand how all these neurons talk to each other through their axons, never mind now they're talking to each other through, nebulously propagated magnetic influences as well. But that's a thing, apoptic coupling.
Yeah, so that's like, I can definitely see like that type of stuff is a long way away, because like we don't even know how many of these technologies will fully mature to the point of large scale use. I mean, like, I bet a long time ago they thought MRIs would go way down in price and all this sort of stuff because the technology would mature. But like even now, things like MRI and CAT scans are still basically unobtainable for simple research. Whereas luckily EEG, FNIRS, all of this stuff is coming down in price. So I think it will find stuff out, but the combination of these technologies, I think, is probably still a ways off. Especially with you mentioning how much high order interactions in the brain are not well understood, which like even basic interactions are still hard to understand.
So I have a very basic question about magnetic imaging real quick compared to, obviously the electrical stuff that we're doing. Really, really basic. I'm familiar with electrical stimulation, transcranial, direct, etc. And I know that you actually experience a sensory effect when you're getting it. So if you wear a Halo Neuro or if you get a electrical stimulation, there is a sensory component to it. I'm certainly familiar with magnetic imaging, and I've had an MRI. Is there magnetic stimulation, and is there any sensory effect ever with any magnetic aspect?
A 70 magnet will make you dizzy if you move too quickly near it.
Okay. Wow.
And I've witnessed that. So at the 7T UCSF, the tech came in and lost his keys in the middle of them, and jumped into the scanner to retrieve the keys, and then like staggered and fell down And
Oh
yeah,
no!
like
I'm sorry, I don't mean to. That's,
I know,
that's awful.
but I mean, it's yeah, it's when you're moving quickly, you know, close to it, that, you know, so like the
And
worst.
that must be the inner ear, I guess.
Yeah. So it's exactly that, and yeah, and then there's
And there's no magnetic stimulation component.
well, it's not. I mean, there it's really, you know, some of the iron particles in the I forget what the little balls are called in your inner ear.
Mhm.
The otoliths.
Thank you. I mean, as you know, as I understand
Cool,
it,
thank you. I was always curious.
I was just trying to get a. So just to Ryan's point, I want to say that ultrasound is one of these like rapidly becoming a accessible technology, and part of that is the you know, is Luc Janvau's you know, open ultrasound project, which you know, again, I was trying to find a link to the NeurotechX Paris's recording of Luke, and but I would just say, you know, again, like check out his Hackaday, and you know, he has a pretty active Slack channel, and what's really cool was what's really cool is the he's recently got a paper with EIT and ultrasound. And again, like this Paris group has a good paper in terms of like better understanding the skull. Then, you know, EIT in combination could be really interesting. Yeah, so I mean, I'm imagining that like if I talk to Neurofuss, that it's still, you know, still tens of thousands. What do you think, John? Tens of thousands to get a Neurofuss?
Yeah, still, yeah.
I mean, have you ever actually asked anybody? I've not.
No, but I've seen them, and they're, you know,
Okay.
they're like the kind of cool ones, serious devices, because they get lots of emitters, right? That's kind of the cool thing about them, is the capacity for constructive interference is very high, because you can cram in a lot of emitters, and you can have like a, you know, you can generate well targeted signals with a relatively low amount of energy coming through each channel.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of like, yeah, it's the same with EEG or with FNIRs, right? It's like when you stack together hundreds of things, then it becomes a complex piece of kit.
Yeah. Well, and you know, now this is what I think is really interesting about that full waveform inversion paper from Imperial, in the sense that, as far as I can tell, like it is a lot of sensors, but they don't. There's nothing particularly special about them. Like if we had a really low cost, you know, transducer that that it would work. Like the magic was really in the software of that paper, and now that's not focused ultrasound, or at least that's not the kind of neuromodulation. You know, like Luke was super interested to read those papers, but he hadn't seen or wasn't trying to do anything like that. Or at least I don't know if it was about power levels or anyway, I was really hoping to get more details from someone. So again, hopefully can get somebody from Arizona to come and talk about this. And thank you for, I'm loving all the papers, the Monty Lab papers. This is interesting. So I don't know if, and brain sonics, huh?
Yeah, that is in UCLA.
Yeah, there's a lot of acronyms in this. Like, so I see it's like LIFUP for low intensity focused ultrasound pulsation. So I would really like to start, yeah, I'd really like there to be an ultrasound channel on Slack. But I'd also like those messages to stay there. So, okay. Well, I definitely want to look at this. Between 1960 and 1990, from the laboratory of Gavrilov in Moscow. I'm going to have to find those papers. Certainly super, you know, I know that there's a lot of interest in focused ultrasound just for the ability to open up the blood-brain barrier. But it seems like they were really going for thalamic stimulation in this paper.
Yeah, because they hypothesize that thalamus is the source of consciousness.
Okay. Oh, good.
Source of state consciousness.
That's an Edelman idea.
We got we've got the seat of the soul is the thalamus. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, it's like between sleep and not sleep.
Sure. Yeah.
Did you say you were working in that lab? Kui?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm Jackie. I was working there in a summer.
Cool.
Yeah. I was using Open BCI because the lab was new. They were new to EEGs and they wanted to experiment with something low cost.
Oh, great.
Okay. And this was on coma patients?
Yeah, the goal was to use ultrasound on coma patients, but for my work at that time, it was on regular people.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Healthy controls. Okay.
Yeah.
But they were interested in EEG potentially of patients too. I mean, certainly. What's it? GigaLab. What's the Stephen Lorenz?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know they've been doing high density EEG of coma patients. And I see Monty is from Adrian Owen's lab, or maybe trained with Adrian.
Yeah, he was I think he was a postdoc with Adrian.
Okay.
He was he was there. I was there at the same time actually.
Oh, okay.
Playing croquet together.
And Cambridge.
Yeah, right. Well, it's a CBU. It's like they have this old house. They have the MRI scanners in this grand old house with like croquet lawn and stuff.
Yeah.
But I read Adrian Owen's book recently, which is really good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like one of the best science books I've read in a long time, just because it kind of, it flows really well. Like it's got these little bits of biography and it's got these little bits of science and it's fairly focused. And so I definitely like recommend. It's called Into the Gray Zone.
Yeah,
I
I did the audiobook.
Some pretty, and some pretty kind of powerful stories in it as well. So
yeah,
but he mentioned, Monty gets a mention in the book with the this thing, like they flew him out to scan the Ariel Sharon
really?
because he had it was in a coma, right? The Israeli PM. So they tried to like read his mind while he was in a coma, and I don't think they managed to get anywhere with that. But yeah, Monty's coming like out of Adrian's stuff, so I'm building on that work.
Gotcha. So, and apparently this is proprietary life up technology. And it's just, I don't have a good enough handle on it to know like what, well, and maybe they're not going to give me the information, but like, does that make it more, does that make the hardware more expensive?
What is that?
That, I mean, I'm looking at Brain Sonics. Which I assume is somewhat going for the same market as like Neurofuss. In that it's epilepsy, Parkinson's, OCD, chronic pain. I'm wondering if we can get one of the pain groups to get interested in fuss as as a or one of the pain clinics, since these doctors have cash and then can offer them high density EEG to look at the fuss effects. But so really interesting. And okay. Yeah, I haven't checked in to see if there's anybody who's joined us. If you'd like to introduce yourself. If anybody else has got questions or topics they would like to raise. I was I missed Jaden leaving. Yeah, I haven't heard about using it for TBI recovery. So I don't know if anybody I put down on the agenda to look at the open science room and to think about like next week, or think about what would be things to catch. Again, like pointing out that registration is free, and there's as John mentioned, others have said that it is being touted as some of the best infrastructure associated with human brain mapping, the conference. It's great to see, it's where the open science talks are obviously taking place, and a lot of overlap with what we're trying to do. I do want to, I see Dimitri's posted a link. I want to also, since Josh and Bernard aren't here joining us, but some great progress with free EEG 32. Bernard had gotten some beta boards, and they did their first recordings this week. First successful recordings this week. So that's really exciting. And I think this is, oh, okay. And then, yeah, Dimitri's posted some of the stimulation that they're using, that he's got connected with that in terms of some neurofeedback that, and you know, certainly focused on meditation. And yeah, we're definitely, or you know, I'm interested in all the things that GTech is working on. Have they set any particular project, or like goals for the hackathon? Or okay, is that what your link is?
Yeah, it's a link to the project. They have two categories. One is
Oh wow, okay.
with hardware, but if we don't have their hardware, we can do data analysis, which I'm planning to join since I don't have GTech hardware this year.
There's one on unresponsiveness if you want to continue your work with Monty.
Say again?
Oh, there's one called unresponsive wakefulness syndrome data analysis. Another one on locked-in patient analysis.
Yeah, yeah.
Pre-300. That's pretty. Pre-300 speller. It's kind of been done to death, but all right. Maybe if you do it now with deep learning, it's going to be more amazing. But
yeah, I signed up for the unresponsive wakefulness P300.
Yeah. The one that I think I know a couple people would be interested in is the Unity games and Unity rehab one, since me and Alex have both thought about working on doing that stuff with EG. I haven't. The problem right now is Alex. He has been pretty busy with a couple projects, and we're also working on another hackathon right now for doing some VR stuff and emergency radio stuff. So
is this
where
to the Aaron?
Yep, Aaron Schwartz Day hackathon radio project. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's usually in the fall, isn't it?
Or no, this is an extra one. This is
okay.
But like I was going in by we wanted to do some neurotech stuff at the Aaron Schwartz Day hackathon before, and maybe this year we can do some of that stuff because as well as work with the Internet Archive on figuring out how to store biodata sets more easily. Because, like, the archive, me and a couple others have been working for years with the archive to slowly allow them to have more types of information stored, and medical data is one of the ones we really want to make it easier to store data sets of. But storing research papers is easy, but storing easy to access 50 gigabyte EG data sets is harder.
Okay. Well, I mean, definitely. I mean, you've already checked out Data Lad and everything that they're doing, right?
Yeah, that stuff's really cool. But
yeah.
Also, if we can back that up on the archive, the archive is never really supposed to be the main place that a piece of information is. It's supposed to be a backup for publicly available information and research.
Sure. But I mean, I think, so and I mean, there's more than just, or certainly like, what's the thing that's built on top of DataLad? Sorry, I mean, Satra presented this just recently. For the it wasn't directly Allen Institute, but it was like NFB. It's like the NFB workshop, and I'm gonna blank on it, but they were storing electrophys. It was like somewhat focused on neurodata without borders. So it was like Neurodata Without Borders workshop, and I mean, what you can see there, I don't know how much that is like overlapping with Internet Archive, but there's a lot of like distributed storage, possibilities with projects associated with DataLad, or resources associated with those, with some of the principles behind those. I'm blanking on what that other. I mean, it was like close enough to EEG that I was wondering whether like we could also use it in the sense that like it was mostly like invasive electrophys. Let me see if I can find the, because he was one of the keynote speakers at Neurodata Without Borders. Yeah, there we go. Dandy, yeah. I don't know where I got Sonata from. Just making up stuff. Dandy Archive. Yeah. Did I?
Yeah, I saw that. Well, I've heard of that, and I know about NWB.
Sure.
That's CFIS though, right?
It is. I mean, it's it's EFIS under. I mean, and they were opening it up, and it was like more than EFIS, in the sense that like it was potentially fluorescence data, or other measures, but all kind of like invasive cellular, or slice stuff, or things like that, like very much not human, non-invasive, but at the same time like there was no it's a somewhat artificial distinction, in the sense that like all the technical questions were the same, in terms of, is there enough metadata associated with the data itself that I can properly analyze this, and and is it in a machine readable format, right? So I mean, yeah. Anyway, it's not potentially super relevant for you, Ryan. Sorry, but it's certainly good to know what these groups and these kinds of
this is very relevant. Just seeing what these like architectures are and stuff like this is the type of stuff that the archive wants to be able to back up in the future and be able to allow people to interact with online, if possible, like without requiring people to download the data, allow them to like at least scrub through it.
Yeah.
Like there's right now we're mainly working on trying to incorporate more levels of metadata that can be easily taken and expressed on the archive. And but yeah, like this dandy architecture, this looks really good. And then things like, yeah, DataLad makes a lot of sense. It's just about trying to make it easy for people to understand the data and get it and put it into something like MATLAB or different types applications, which the amount of different standards for data sets is pretty annoying.
Sure. And you know, and that's kind of what they are trying to tackle, you know, and you know, and they're doing this, you know, so I think Dandy certainly was part of an Allen Institute hackathon, and you know, anyway, you've got lots of big sites with, you know, that are generating lots of data, it makes sense to start thinking about, you know, and certainly one of the things about DataLad was also like there's lots of, you know, storage resources available in a distributed way, and yeah, can we you know, utilize that to, in a sense, like, you know, not have to have one monolithic backup, and, you know, and then I don't know how serious they ever got about things like IPFS, but you know, those other, you know, related initiatives. So I know that there's a current, I would you know, gonna try and do this each week, still point people to Brain Hacks Mattermost, and which is the current discussion board for the Open Science Room, and as well as obviously being Brain Hacks, and it's where I think it's Neuro Now is where the Neuromatch, you know, Neuromatch conference, Neuromatch Academy stuff is also, you know, they're also utilizing Brain Hacks Mattermost. So mattermost.brainhack.org, and yeah, let me, you know, I know we're getting close to midnight on the East Coast. So want to give want to start to wrap it up, but and tomorrow I posted, there's a Simons Foundation motor control conference that's going to be online. I don't know if everybody saw that, but you know, like Nano Neuro had Jose Carmena. Tomorrow, Flip Sabies is going to be talking, and you know, that's always going to be super relevant. I don't, you know, there's absolutely nothing necessarily going to be about Neuralink, but you can find a link to that on Slack. And I was just checking the see what's on the schedule for tomorrow.
There's the diversity meetup.
Oh well, there's our diversity meetup at.
Is that going to be hosted in the same room?
I'm not sure. Abby did ask me to she did ask if I could give it a shout out during, she was sorry she wasn't able to join us today. I said I already did. I will ask if we will use Jitsi. Let me just see. So okay. So tomorrow on the Open Science Room, and again, let me know if you don't have a link to that. But there's going to be the BIDS Town Hall. So with some of the principals that will be on Crowdcast. And then they're going to do the brain hack highlights. So that'll actually be kind of cool. So this is all starting at 10 a.m. Well, there's a social at 9 on GatherTown. And yeah, and then they're starting these open emergent sessions, which maybe next year we could have something NeurotechX related, or certainly that focuses on people collecting. I'd love to see something like thinking about my spectrogram as opposed to my connectome. So it's just your daily spectra, over a year.
That's a pretty good idea, actually.
It wouldn't be bad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
super
start with a week. Try a week first.
Yeah.
I think I've tried and then had various abortive attempts at that.
Okay.
I haven't tried very hard.
So this is the part of, like, can EEG notebooks somehow make that easier to do? Or, like, in the sense I mean, not in its current form, but like it should work as easy as, connecting to your iPhone or something, but the data should immediately get stored and, and be readily, a simple nightly task updates your spectrogram. And this is what I really liked about Open Humans, in that sense that we would have control over what happens to that data. Yeah. So, and yeah, I will still always, community call for Open Humans is 10 a.m. Tuesday. For anybody who wants to work on that. But I'm looking at all these emergent sessions. There's session times that can be booked, but everything looks very MRI. Machine learning and neuroimaging. with Gail and Satra. Okay. Yeah, there's lots of open slots. Yeah. So just want to thank our videographers, Ryan and Alex, for their continued work on getting these up on YouTube. Any last thoughts? I do want to has the GTech hackathon been posted somewhere in Slack? Has there been a recent reminder of that? Be good.
Yeah, I can post that.
Okay. Hey, Alex, are you collecting the chat log? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so